Okay, how's this? Loud enough? Great crowd. Thanks for coming out tonight. I see a lot of friends here. I'm here to really introduce the new executive director of Hancher, Andre Perry. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce him. He's been a colleague ever since he came to town. I served on the board of the English Theater for 9 years. Andre was there for 11 years. He also will remember, and it continues, his work with the Mission Creek Festival and with the Witching Hour Festival. Very successful, very well recognized around the country. Andre is, as you all know and have read, is the new executive of Hancher. Hello? Okay. New executive of Hancher. He's got that gorgeous new building to work with now, and it's full of promise, as you know. How many of you have been to Hancher regularly? I thought so. That's great. Andre went to Princeton University, graduated there, and then came to the University of Iowa, the nonfiction writing program. Nonfiction writing program, I can hear that. His first book is now out. You can get it in Prairie Lights, or you can get it on Amazon. It's called Some of Us Are Hungry Now. It's a fascinating read. And he tells me he's working on his second, and we're all hoping he does that pretty soon. He has really good DNA for this job. His parents were both diplomats. They worked for the State Department. And his mother was an ambassador in 2 countries in Africa. Very high level State Department people, and wonderful people as well. His wife Amanda teaches 4th grade at Horace Mann School. He's got 2 young kids, Josephine, who's 6, and Teddy, who's 2. His plate is very, very full right now. And I think it's an exciting time for him. Hey, Andre, what's up? Come on, man.
Hey, everyone. How's it going? Can you hear me? We'll take our chances with the amplification here. So good to see you. Thank you for coming out on a Thursday night. I feel like this is like my own show, you know, like this is like a packed room. I don't get this very often. We're going to talk about Hancher. We're going to talk about the performing arts in Iowa. We're going to talk about our community. I will try my best to not talk too long so that we can actually just talk and have questions and comments. I know that so many people in this room have loved Iowa City, have loved the university, have loved Hancher, have loved the arts, and have just been committed to the growth, the ongoing evolution of the community that we live in. And so I'm thankful that you're here and thankful for all the work and all the energy you put into the scene that we exist in right now. I'm also just generally thankful that we're able to even meet today. It's been a rough couple years, a really rough couple years that I think has taken off just a lot of our spirit, you know? And I know each in our own way, we try to keep pushing through and keep showing up. But I'm hoping, I know things are not perfect, but I'm hoping that we're starting to get back to some of that joy and being able to regularly just be a community again, have coffee, talk, argue. Well, I guess we were arguing about politics the whole time. So argue about things like whether or not you like jazz at Lincoln Center, or what you thought about Brentano, or a play that you saw at Riverside, or a show that you saw at the Angler. Getting back to that good part of being a community, just being in real dialogue about the things that matter to us, being able to have our kids and grandkids and the kids of our friends go to school again and just engage. So I do have a presentation, but I just wanted to be grateful, thankful that you're here, and thankful that we're able to just even commune. It's so important, and that drives, I think, a lot of why we're even here doing this work. It's really just to get us all together. You know, that's the key point. I want to talk about 3 things tonight. One, I want to talk about just some structural change that's happened at the university in the performing arts in Hancher. I I want to talk about budget stuff, and then I want to talk about the fun stuff, which is the programming. So I'll probably do the first two really quickly. It's like, I'm not presenting to a bunch of deans at the university, so who want a different kind of presentation. But I think it's important, I want to make sure everyone knows kind of what's going on and what's happened with Hancher, just so we're all on the same page. But then we'll get to the programming, and I've got a special guest here who's going to join me as well at some point for the Q&A. The last thing I want to do is, in terms of gratitude, is thank Wally Chappell and Karen Chappell, who's back there, who have been just such dear friends, been my boss, have been mentors for me ever since they came back to Iowa City, and not just to me, but to a lot of us who are trying to learn how to do this community building, this arts building. They too and others have been just so ingrained in making sure that we have an artistic and community core that continues to grow. And I think because of them, I am now committed to that work. I want to do my best to bring up those who are younger than me and just tell them everything I know, and I know that they're going to do a better job than me, and it's just that continual work of just passing it along. So thank you, Karen, and thank you, Wally. All right, so let us see if we can talk about Hancher a bit. I think it's important to remember kind of like the things that are driving us. I'm going to go to this first. So we talk about the arts in our community, we talk about the arts in the University of Iowa. As changes happen, as things shift, I think all of us should know, those of us working in these facilities and working at Hancher and performing arts at Iowa, for those of us who are community members, for our deans, for our president, for our regents, to remember that the University of Iowa has been dedicated to the arts for a very long time. And so when I show up, presenting new budgets, or when I'm there, making a case for us, it's not like we pulled this out of some hat. This is something that has been in our blood, has been in our DNA. I haven't listed all the dates here, but 1897, that was the first creative writing class at the University of Iowa, followed by the first versions of the theater arts department of the School of Music. And then in 1922, 100 years ago, convenient, but 100 years ago, Dean Seashore of the Graduate College said that we have to recognize in the University of Iowa creative work toward advanced degrees, so that people painting, writing, performing, we understood that that was important work to recognize and to give people what would eventually become the MFA. That started at Iowa. That is a crucial step that has not only affected our institution in this state, it has affected the whole country. And that is because of a dean who was not necessarily aligned with the arts, but could respect and understand how important that would be to the culture that would come 100 years later. So we're grateful to that administration for seeing that. And we were lucky to have other things that happen, like Elizabeth Catlett being an amazing person here who's catalyzed so much energy around visual arts. The Writers' Workshop opened in 1936, and then we had the museum, and we had the first version of Hancher in 1972. So this has been part of who we are. And I think it's just so important to say that if you hear someone advocating for the arts, like, why are we doing art? No, this is part of Iowa. And so I just want us to make sure that we're clear about our roots. Our new president, Barb Wilson, has been working on her strategic plan. It just came out, and she worked with the provost and the VP of research, and they spent a lot of time kind of figuring it out, and they made a very short strategic plan, which I appreciate, so that it can just be clear and easy to execute. And the way that they see the future of Iowa, the University of Iowa, is that we will be the destination of first choice for a diverse and talented body of students, faculty, and staff who craft new chapters of exploration, discovery, creation, and engagement. When we work in the performing arts, Barb asks us, hey, how does this relate to you? This is how we see it. The University of Iowa will be the destination of first choice for the performing arts, for a diverse and talented body of students, faculty, staff, visiting artists, alumni, arts patrons, and advocates who will craft new chapters of exploration, discovery, creation, and engagement. So on our arts campus right now, particularly our performing arts campus, we are thinking about how we can become one of the most thriving performing arts campuses in America. I spend a lot of time visiting with the director of the School of Music, of the Theater Arts Department, and of the Dance Department. And for the first time, we are really working in collaboration on mostly a daily basis, just to try to figure out how do we build that atmosphere that actually makes this a great place for the performing arts. And for Hancher, we're kind of that glue, because we are the bridge from the campus and the students to us as community members who live and work in town, and then to the whole arts field that's around the country and around the world. And so we're really in the middle of this. There's been a lot of structural change. This is the boring slide, but it's important to share that there used to be a division of performing arts that collected the dance department, the theater, and the school of music. And there's been a lot of change that happened over the summer. The provost of the University of Iowa formed with an Office of Performing Arts and Engagement. And within that office had two key assets: Hancher Auditorium, which we're all familiar with, and a shared partnership that would bridge us closer to our colleagues in dance, music, and theater. And the dean and the provost dissolved the Division of Performing Arts, and now we're just Performing Arts at Iowa. And that represents all of the performing arts activity that goes on at the university for our students, as well as for our community overall and at large. And so probably a better slide is this one, which is that's the vision in the center, and we are all working together to achieve that vision. Some of it is about the outcomes for undergraduates, for graduate students, for making this a great and welcoming and supportive place for faculty and staff, for making this a great and welcoming place for visiting artists from all over the world, whether they are super famous or they are just getting started, and for connecting all that amazing work with us as the community who lives here, and as much as we can, the whole state of Iowa. So that's what's driving us to push forward. It's certainly a structural shift, but I think there's also a philosophical shift happening, where we are just beginning to understand that us working together, whether it's me and a faculty member, or a programming director and a faculty member, or a set of students or directors of these different schools and departments, that us working together is going to have a much deeper impact than us being in our silos off by ourselves. And so that's the energy that we're leaning into right now. And it's messy. You know, we've got tensions. We don't really argue, but we've got tensions, and we're just trying to figure them out and just try to remind ourselves, where are we trying to get to? Where were we 3 months ago? Oh, like we are so far ahead, and just keep our eyes on the prize and keep moving forward, but keep moving forward together. And so that's been a big step for us over the summer and into this fall. This fall, for the first time ever, at Hancher and at Voxley, we had 3 meetings where we brought together our undergraduates in dance, music, and theater. The first time they've ever been brought together just as a community. For our graduate students, we did the same. And then for our faculty and staff, all the people working in this world, every staff member at Hancher, our production unit, our dance faculty and staff, theater arts, and music. We just hadn't done it before. And so we're just even learning how to be together and understand that, oh, I've heard about you, you're doing this amazing work. And so it's organic. It's not going to change the world overnight, but we were trying to set values and practices in place that can really get us to an evolution over a number of years. Then there's the budget, right? So in 2020, when there was a lot of other things going on in the spring of 2020, and we really didn't know how much more we could process about disruption in the world, Hancher was defunded, or a plan for defunding was put out there for Hancher. And I think for probably at least a number of people in this room, for myself, and for other community members, that was a real shock to the system. I didn't even work at Hancher at the time, and I almost fell out of my chair. I was trying to figure out, we got a lot of bills to pay at the Engler, and no one's playing any shows, you know, like how are we going to get through this? And I about fell out of my chair when I heard that news, of course, you know, got in touch with Chuck, and we talked through it and everything, and I think our whole arts community, you know, we tried to think through that. So that's a thing that happened. But where do we go from here? One thing is that an administration that made that decision is not the same administration that exists today. And so as we try to figure out what's going to be our budget model going forward, and will there be funding and what kind of funding and support from the University of Iowa, we have reset that conversation, and we are coming to the table to just try to figure out how can it work? What does that look like in brass tacks? I've been working with our team, and I first, over the course of the summer, did a full historical financial review to understand how money has come in, how money has gone out of Hancher historically, and shared that with the provost, shared that with everyone on our team, whether they were working front desk, whether they were cleaning Hancher, whether they were at the front of house. Everyone on our staff knows what our situation is because everyone owns a piece of it. So we did that historical review, and now I'm in the process of drafting a 5-year plan that shows, hey, this is the vision of the University of Iowa. Here's our performing arts vision. Here's what we think Hancher can bring great value to that mission and to the community. And understanding we have a lot of constituents to serve, our students, our people here, and the whole arts field. And so we've got a big lift, right, in order to really deliver on that value for the university. And here's how we think the money should work. You know, we are certainly willing to, you know, do what we can to get our earned revenue through our ticket sales and all the operational revenue rentals that we do. We certainly have a really dedicated base of people who support us through fundraising. And we also think that, you know, university support should be part of it as well. We're willing to have a diverse, you know, set of income in order to make this work. And so we'll bring that proposal to the provost's office, and we'll have a conversation. I think I'll mention 2 things. One is, as far as I can tell, everyone at the table is acting in good faith. And I think there's a true understanding from our leadership of the value that Hancher and the Performing Arts brings to the University of Iowa. As you know, they also have other pressures from other places that they're making them think how they run this machine. But I think they understand the value. And our president, who came from the University of Illinois, I think really understood the value that Cranor, our colleague institution at Illinois, provides not only for the University of Illinois, but for Champaign and Urbana. She really gets it. And when Chuck retired this summer, Mike from Cranor came over to celebrate Chuck. He's the executive director of Cranor. And I was like, Mike, how you doing? And he's like, I'm here for 2 reasons: to celebrate Chuck and tell Barb how important Hancher is. He said, that's my mission while I'm in Iowa City. And so I think the external field has also accentuated to our leadership how important this is, not just for us here in Iowa City, not just for our students, but for the arts field overall, because of the work that Wally and Chuck and others have done to just make Hancher a legendary foundation for the arts world. So the message is there. The other thing I'll say about that budget process, one, I think we have really good people at the table having a fair and open conversation. The second thing is, I've been through this before, which is not to say that it will, you know, everything goes the same way, but as some of you know, I worked with the Englert and film scene to run the Strength and Grow Evolve campaign, and that was a major fundraising campaign for very small arts organizations, and we got an investment of $1 million from the city of Iowa City to kick off that campaign. But that wasn't one conversation, that was a series of conversations. First, taking that dream to Jeff and his team, aligning the strategic vision of what Englert and film scene wanted to do to the strategic vision of the city of Iowa City, having in-depth conversation with his staff, lots of feedback, and getting to a point where we thought this could be workable. And bless all their hearts for their service, but it was a really contentious city council at that time. And at the end of the day, city council has to vote and approve any recommendation of that level coming from the city staff. And so we had a lot of talking and a lot of different people to kind of get on the same page. And the reason I think we were successful was because we took time, and we didn't rush anything. And we listened, and we made our case as strong as we could make it. These are different people, it's a different institution, but I think a lot of the processes and the movements are the same, which are, we gotta get to the table to make this work. And so I just want you to know the processes that our team is going through right now with our leadership at the university. That's all the boring stuff. This is a little more fun. So there's been a huge legacy with Hancher. We're in year 50. I'm still like reeling from that. That's like so amazing to be part of an institution that has done this work for 50 years. And when Hancher was built in 1972, the arts and culture scene was different than it is now. It has been part of activating what we have now, a very active and robust scene. People like me, people like Wally, who else is here? Karen, Miriam, Aaron, we're gonna fight for arts like all day long, and we'll say there's never enough, and to some extent we're right. And at the same time, we do have to acknowledge there's some great things here, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of you are still in Iowa City, is because it is such a robust culture, and particularly in arts and culture, right? So as we think about programming the next 50 years, there's a lot of weight on our shoulders, right? Wally, Chuck, Judy, you guys did too good of a job, maybe, and so you're really stressing out the rest of us here. But we do have to move forward. And so I want to talk about two things, our artistic vision and kind of how we're thinking about things, and then maybe the artistic structure in which we'll do these. So part of it is, people ask me, are you going to change everything? No, of course not. There are great foundations here. So we want to celebrate what's gone really well in our foundations. I think the performance last week with Jazz at Lincoln Center and Wynn Marsalis, working with Orchestra Iowa and working with the choir of students from the University of Iowa, Wynton is a legend, and we always will defer when writing to legends. There are companies like ABT or Alvin Ailey that are legendary, and we need to respect the work that they're doing, and to also balance that with supporting early career artists and just finding a way that we can find a dance company that I guarantee you have never heard of, but Aaron has heard of, and making sure we bring them to this campus and to this community in the right way, while also having the ABT or the Alvin Ailey on that same season, so that we can see the range of work that is possible in the creative world. One thing that we're also thinking about is expanding our venue network. Hancher Auditorium in its current form is still pretty new, right? Opened up in 2016. We had some unfortunate years in 20 and 21. So it's still a relatively new building, but I think we know it now. And I think our team sees Hancher from a programming standpoint as kind of the center and the core, but we also see opportunity to bring some of the artistic collaborations we have to other venues within our midst. I think there's a great collection of venues downtown, absolutely stunning. I'm really just glad to live here. There's also some wonderful venues on our campus. We do a lot of music, and we have one of the best performance halls for music, I think, in the country at Voxman. And so we're in conversation with Tammy about when is it appropriate for us to bring maybe an artist who should be in Voxman's main hall instead of Hadley Stage. I think Aaron might talk about this a little bit later, but some of you were at Brentano the other night. So wonderful at Brentano and Upshaw. Dawn Upshaw was here. But Aaron and I were talking the next day, and he was just saying, hey, it was a great performance, but the room was not adequate to capture the dynamics of this classical chamber group. However, had this been in the Senate chambers or been in Voxman, it would have been a totally new vibe that we would have been able to hear the dynamics. So that is just one example. We just want to make sure we're putting the right art in the right places around our campus. We are just blessed with amazing facilities. We want to be a part of bringing them to life. We also just want to respond more nimbly to the field. We're often planning a year, maybe 2 years out, but sometimes something really cool happens just a few months away. There might be a play that hits the New York Theater Workshop that is just, people are going wild about, and that playwright might say, hey, I'm in Chicago doing anything, can I pop over to Iowa City and hang out with your students at the theater department? We want to be able to say yes every single time. Come over here, let's hang out for a couple days, let's do some master classes with the students, and then let's maybe have a public lecture. Doesn't need to be in Hancher, we'll do it over the Stanley in the lobby and have a fun time over there. But we want to be able to respond to things like that in the moment, as well as doing this long-term planning. And then we also want to find ways to bridge kind of the world-class artistic innovation that we're bringing from outside of our community, from around the world, and kind of bridging it in more smooth ways with the creative and critical work that's happening on our campus. How do we get the artist from afar next to the artist from near? I think last Saturday at Hancher was a perfect example of this. I mean, it was brilliant to have Jazz at Lincoln Center performing with their local orchestra, Orchestra Iowa, with 100 local singers, about 85% of them students at the University of Iowa. Like that kind of mix that's what makes us, that's what gets us up, you know? That's what gets us very excited. So we're trying to find ways to continue doing that. In terms of that structure, we'll certainly have a core season running through the academic year. We will have flexibility for pop-up opportunities that happen year-round, and we will definitely be having in-depth residencies to kind of like make sure that we can go a little bit deeper with the right artist, with our campus, with our community. When I talk about flexibility for pop-up opportunities, you know, there's this really awesome band, Lake Street Dive, who has just had an amazing year. They're playing huge festivals, playing really big rooms across the country. They got back to New York, you know, they took a breath and they said, you know, we want to get back to just having some intimate experiences, and we think we just want to go on the road, maybe this winter, do like a couple weeks of shows. And they just, you know, I called them up and said, hey, do you guys want to come to Iowa City? And that's only a few months away, but they're going to play here in January, at the end of January. And it's just us being able to say, hey, we already have a season, but we're able to add an event that's going to bring meaning and joy to our community. Sign us up. We're going to bring that to the community. So that's what I mean by a pop-up opportunity. In terms of the regular season, you know, Aaron, who's our reprogramming engagement director, is thinking about a lot of things. One of the things he's thinking about is how do we re-enliven the classical music experience and really think deeply about all the different places we can put classical music in our community, so that whether you are just a really deep fan who listens to your CDs or your records every day, or you're not even sure if you like classical music, we can put you in a situation where it's going to feel electric, and you don't have to come with any knowledge to that experience, and you will be blown away. You might love it, you might not love it, but you will say something happened. You know, and that's the goal that we're trying to get to. We're figuring out what that's going to look like. I put Broadway up here because we're really thinking about how we can develop a focused Broadway program over the next, you know, 3 or 4 years. Certainly Broadway productions have come in, and there have been some great ones that have come in the last few years since Hancher reopened. As most of you know, probably the biggest Broadway presenter in the state is Des Moines Performing Arts. And we got to give their team a lot of credit. They did an amazing job building that. But in the state of Iowa, there's not really a clear number 2. It's kind of Des Moines Performing Arts is really just thoughtfully putting together a Broadway season on an annual basis, and respect to them. And we don't need to do what they do, because, you know, we do other things that they don't. But maybe we can be number 2. And number 2 is a lot, and that can be the difference between getting Hadestown or not. You know, between getting Hamilton or not. Maybe it's the second year, not the first year. Des Moines going to get it. But we just want to be a little bit more active in the game. One, because they're great productions, and people really love them. And we want to be able to have a diversity of Broadway. We want to be able to have, you know, classic hits, whether it's a Hairspray or Les Mis. We want to be able to have the new, amazing, awesome thing, whether it's a Hamilton or Hadestown, or the thing that's like pushing the edge, whether it's like a Strange Loop or Come From Away, so that we can have a diversity of Broadway musicals and sometimes just Broadway plays that are hitting our stage. And so we're developing those relationships now. It's going to take a few years for us to really get our feet, but if Broadway is your thing, please bear with us as we get this developed. As we think about our annual season, we are now devoting energy and time to make sure that we're co-producing something with our dance, music, and theater departments on an annual basis, and we're figuring out what that looks like. It might mean bringing an opera into Hancher every other year. It might mean bringing a guest choreographer to work with the dance department and dance gala. It might be bringing a great playwright or a director, or even someone working in technical design to work with the theater department in one of their productions. We don't have it all figured out. We just know that all parties want it to happen, and that's part of our contribution to supporting our academic presentations and productions. And finally, you know, we're in the midst of developing a multidisciplinary festival that's going to inhabit multiple spaces. We'll have Hancher as the center, but we will also work with our friends at Voxman, the Theater Arts, Space Place, and as well as the Stanley Museum to develop an event that's going to have visiting artists as well as faculty and staff and students presenting their work side by side. So As always, I could talk forever about this, but I will stop there just to make sure that we have time for questions. This is a long-term process. Things are changing. There will be some changes this year. There will be some changes next year. We're really hoping in a few years we'll be able to get to a place where we're like, oh, we're in it now. This is what we've been dreaming about. And I think everyone's committed to that long-term investment to get there. But along the way, there will be lots of fun moments. Finally, two things. One, this season for us is really about celebration and just being back out, being back together, to spiritually reconnect with our community, to see friends again, to make new friends, to see family again. It's something that we just haven't had a lot of for a couple of years. And so in our small way, Hancher wants to be part of bringing the community back out. And so that's what we're really focusing on this year. If you see me at a show, please say hello. Catch me in intermission or at the end of the show, before the show. If you're mad about the show, talk to Aaron. But other than that, just welcome back. The last thing I want to say is just bring up Aaron Greenwald is our new programming and engagement director for Hancher. It just started last Monday, and we've kept him busy. Do we still have that microphone? Thank you so much. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me? I realize I've been doing this for a long time, and I realized that my natural voice was not loud enough. I've stood many times on a stage and tried to say something, and then afterwards, many people in the audience came and said, "We didn't hear a word you said," and were very upset. So I'm delighted that the microphone is working, and I'll stand as still as possible to speak into it. It's a real delight to arrive in Iowa City. My previous experience at a university was at Duke University, where I ran a smaller equivalent of the Hancher for about a dozen years at Duke and in Durham. And after that, I went to a very weird music festival in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is called Big Ears. And I spent the pandemic and sort of the immediate post-pandemic. Are we post-pandemic now? We're, okay. At this music festival, which is frankly, one of the most adventurous and legendary at this point music festivals in the country. And I feel like that is an interesting experience to bring to Hancher at this moment in time. In some ways, I think Hancher is three things. One is it is a terrific building and a breathtaking theater. Secondly, I think it is a presenting organization that can put on terrific, enlivening, transcendent performing arts, both in that building and across the community. And third, I think it's connective tissue between the performing arts departments, the faculty, students, and the Iowa City community. So it's exciting to set forth on figuring out how that all works. I'll give you an example. One of the most exciting young composers in music right now is a violinist named Jesse Montgomery. Jesse Montgomery is the composer in residence at Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And she has moved from New York to Chicago because she was tired of living in New York City. Two conversations that were really interesting that happened today. I was talking with the artistic director of the Dance Theater of Harlem, and they said, "Oh, we have this amazing piece by Jesse Montgomery that includes music by Jesse Montgomery, and when we did it in South Carolina, we had a chamber orchestra. Wouldn't that be exciting?" Well, yeah, that would be exciting. And then I was talking with the director of our chamber music program. You guys may not know this, but our School of Music, their emphasis is chamber music. Small ensembles playing together, whether classical music or jazz. This is unusual in my experience. Most schools of music and music departments, the emphasis is on the orchestra or the wind symphony or the jazz big band. So I said to the head of our chamber music program, would your students be interested in playing Jessie Montgomery's music? And she said, oh yeah, Jessie Montgomery is phenomenal. We'd love to play her music. Well, so what is starting to come together is maybe we have some opportunities to bring this terrific artist over from Chicago, to have our students immersed in her music, to offer her music played by a professional band to the community as part of another performance. And that way things are sort of starting to link together. And I think one of the great things about things linking together is that the story becomes clearer for everybody. What is this person about? What are they writing about? What are their concerns? What's their musical vocabulary? So I think that's one of the best things we can do in our work. We are not offering things every day that are household names. We need you to take chances with us. We promise we're presenting world-class things, but we also are introducing those world-class things to our community, and we do that by telling stories about why they're important, about what they connect to in our lives. So I think that's one of the things that I'm interested in, and I think is exciting as Hancher continues its evolution. And it's also exciting in this moment where we all have spent the last 2 or 2.5 years not engaging in performing arts in the way that we did previously. So we as a country, maybe as a globe, are re-emerging and trying to figure out, well, what should the performing arts look like? Should they look different than they did previously? In some ways, I think they should. But now's the time, the benefit of a horrible thing is we have a moment of reset. And so it's an interesting time to be reimagining the things that the performing arts can do and the kinds of stories that can be told. So maybe I'll say that. But I think that there's a terrific opportunity here, and I think that the university, the arts at Iowa, and Iowa City are on actually a terrific trajectory. And I think that 5 years from now, we'll look back and say, oh, that was the beginning, and look at this kind of remarkable place we are now. So.
I think that's it. Are there thoughts, comments, questions, advice? Yes.
Andre, you talked a lot about community in this process of individual efforts and it all sounds exciting. I'm curious whether there was, throughout this process, there was any thought given to community in the sense of the greater community, not the university community, but the greater online community, having active input in any of this process.
What do you mean by active input? Sorry.
Well, for example, you meet regularly. Anybody other than the academic circle involved?
We can't really hear
Yeah,
the question.
I'll repeat the question just so everyone knows. So the question is about, as the performing arts structures, units of the university come together, what voice does the community at large have in that process and in that development? Thank you for the question. I think there are a number of things that are happening all at once. One is that our units coming together is new. And in one level, not the only level, but one level, we just need to figure out how to work together. And that's one thing that's happening. and it's almost like we got to get our house right before we start going out and doing other stuff. And so that's part of it, but not all of it. Another part of it, and I think this is really felt deeply by the Hancher staff, is that we, because we're in this middle place of interacting with the community, interacting with these artists from afar, interacting with our students, is that we really hope that we are ears and like our hands are deep in the community and our voices are deep in the community, or that we're listening and engaging. I know it's been a little bit tougher these last couple of years, but I think that value and that sort of discipline is part of who we are. What Aaron didn't say, and this is one of the reasons why I think Aaron wanted to come here and why we were so excited for Aaron to come here, is when he worked at Duke, I mean, talk about a town gown, like tension, right? When he worked at Duke, and Duke being in Durham, so much of Aaron's work was not only presenting in Duke, but also trying to figure out how to engage with Durham as a community, how to bring amazing work into those venues, whether it was a performance hall or just a really cool rock club, And so I think that is part of who we are, is listening. I guess all I can say is have some faith. The faith is that our intentions are there, that people who maybe are new to the community are bringing that on, and then myself and others who have been here, I think that's how we've tried to behave, in the time and the other work that we've done while we're here, and I think that will continue. Also, I'm very available, you can find me in the same place almost every day of the week, and it's a pretty nice place to come over. This is not bad.
Can I add one thing to
Yeah.
that? Is that in my experience, a university presenter may be the only place that students and community sit elbow to elbow and shoulder to shoulder. And what's more is I think that we're very interested in trying to highlight the cultural assets of this place, whether it's the institution or the broader region or the state or the Midwest at large. I think we need to think about how a performing arts organization can bring world-class work, but can also reflect things back that are a little bit closer to home. So I think I think there's a real opportunity there to create and to support artists that are near to us. And so.
Hey.
I would be very interested to hear you talk a little more about what you see as you, quote, reimagine the classical series.
I'll repeat the question, I'm gonna go to Aaron. The question, thank you for the question, was in what ways are we beginning to reimagine how we present classical music at Hancher and for our community?
Some of us rely on Hancher.
Oh, no, it's not going to go away. So I think that there probably ought to be, Andre and I are going to have an argument about this at some point, but I think there probably ought to be like double the classical music that there is currently at Hancher. I think that there's not nearly enough. And in fact, I feel like there's not, especially when it comes to chamber music and recital, that I feel like there's not a baseline. There's not as rich a vocabulary as I think there probably ought to be. So I think that there should be chamber music or a recital presented at least on a monthly basis, if not more frequently. I'm a really devoted chamber music programmer. And in fact, when I was at Duke, I ran a chamber music series that was 80 years old. It was started by Eastern European immigrants who had come to Durham. And what was interesting about that is that the audience was so knowledgeable that they taught other people who came into that scene how to listen to chamber music. I mean, not sometimes actively, but sometimes by their attention. I think we also started a piano recital series. We're not going to start all these series at Hancher. We started a piano recital series, we started a vocal ensemble series. So I think that we need to reinforce, the other thing I'll say is partly because symphony orchestras have become unaffordable in the world at large. There are more musicians playing chamber music now, and I think we are in a golden age of string quartets. There are more great string quartets in the world now than probably there ever have been. And I think we need to showcase those groups. And they're literally from all around the world, as close as Bloomington, Indiana, and as far away as Jerusalem. So I think we need to offer, again, I totally echo Andre's sentiment that chamber music should take place in the concert hall at Bachsmith. That's a chamber music hall. If we can offer it in even more intimate settings, we were talking about Strauss, which is this very small room at Hancher. If we could put a string quartet in the middle and have the audience in the round, this is a way I presented chamber music previously, that's an enlivening way to engage classical music. Further, we have a terrific cadre of young composers, people writing new music, ensembles playing new music. So we also need to showcase those ensembles. But you can't showcase those ensembles effectively if you don't have an audience that understands foundational classical music. And then finally what I'll say is, I've never had the pleasure of being in a hall that could handle a symphony orchestra. So I'm really excited by the opportunity. I presented symphony orchestras, but I'm really excited by the opportunity to present some of the great symphony orchestras in the world at Hancher. So I think that's what we're thinking about. We want to engage living composers too. I sort of mentioned that earlier. But I think, I think that universities are a place where the classical tradition is supported and also evolves. And I think we can do good work with that here.
Here and then here. Yes?
When the programs are as challenging as the one was the other night, I think I would certainly have been helped had there been a pre-concert lecture. And I don't know if anybody else feels the same way that we're talking about. We just didn't have enough information.
Was that the Brentano or the? Yeah, no, I agree. First, I think that was a. So the question was when the program that the Brentano Quartet and Don Upshaw played last night, which was primarily British composers and songs, and then a 45-minute new piece. So first of all, I think that's an incredibly adventuresome program. I don't think it's a bad program to offer. It may not be like the first place I'd take an audience. Personally, no. Someone made that decision. I have no disrespect. But I do think that pre-concert talks are great in chamber music. Actually, all this brings me back to the way that I learned most about chamber music was when I was at Duke. We presented an ensemble called St. Lawrence String Quartet quite often, and Jeff Nuttall was the first violinist of St. Lawrence String Quartet. And he just passed. Jeff was 58 years old and was a remarkable advocate for music. But it's when I heard him talk and play that I understood what chamber music was about, how it was supposed to work. His great anecdote was like talking about, do you guys know the Bob Dylan album Nashville Skyline? So there's a moment where Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash sing together, and they are not in sync, but they are in sync. And for Jeff, that was an instructive moment about how a string quartet could be, how each member could have their own voice, but they could be playing together. All to say, his explanation of the music he was playing was always incredibly helpful to me. I think the dynamism of his ensemble was also great, and you know, in some ways there may be ensembles that we want to bring first so that we can establish just how dynamic the tradition is before going to things that are slightly more subtle. But I agree with you. That a talk would have been great beforehand.
Why did you hand him the mic?
I'll be happy to.
Hold it, your head.
I'll hold
I was saying that I think that in addition to the story of this program, there are several other colleges of the university that also have similar goals. And they're, and I mentioned medicine and nursing and other more classical divisions of the university. And I would like to hear if you have ideas about how we can build those links so that they continue.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think the core of the question was asking how we're going to come from our little hub of performing arts and start to share that collaboration across the campus and the community at large. I think I'll kind of repeat what I said, which is I think we're building our own house and getting it in order at the same time, getting it cleaned up and getting it ready. And our full intention, I think over a number of years, is to take the collaborative practices that we're able to establish within performing arts, with Hancher, with dance, music, and theater, with other arts programs at the university, and just breathe that out. I think, as you know, just artistic and creative thinking offers so much across the campus and across the disciplines, and there's so much we take as creatives and creative thinkers from that other just genius work that is happening around us. So I'll maybe speak for myself. My dream is a fully interconnected community and campus working together. So our doors are already open, but I think we'll be even open in a grander way as we start to get our feet in the next few years. Thank you for that question.
Are you having any collaboration with the Iowa City Community School District in helping young people learn how to be good music?
Yes. The question was, what does our collaboration with the school district, the local school district look like? So it exists, and we're hoping it grows from where it is right now. Right now, we are certainly committed on an annual basis. We have the 8th grade through the Any Given Child program. We have the 8th grade come to a performance every year, the entire 8th grade. And this year, it's going to be a theater work that we're doing in the spring. And we're hoping that artists will be able to visit each of those 8th grade classrooms during the week before the matinee that they come to. So that is something that we will certainly continue. I think our shared dream, Aaron, myself, and our colleagues would love to both get engagement with a younger elementary level as well as with an older secondary level. So I think the dream is to kind of have an influence and a presentations and collaboration across the board with the school district. So we will get there as we go.
I was just going to say that, you know, the Stanley reopening and having a commitment to a similar endeavor, I think, is helpful for us. I think we can join forces. We can collaborate in a way that we haven't been able to since the Stanley has been offline, and they clearly are also committed to education at the elementary school level.
I think we have time for maybe one more, if there is one more. There doesn't have to be one more. We're still looking for advice. Dear friend.
Yeah, I hate to have the last question on sort of a negative note, and that is that we were speaking earlier, the dull topic of financing and so forth.
Not filled with me.
Just curious whether or not, how you're approaching that. You have such a wonderful vision that you're describing, and I'm sort of a student of the old adage of, you need margin for mission. How are we going about that?
So we are envisioning programmatically what we think we should be doing. What are the programs we deliver, what are the collaborations we deliver, connections within the institution and with the community overall. Aligning that with the strategic plan for the university. And then saying, well, in order to do this at the highest level, this is what it would cost. That's the investment in people, that's the investment in the artists and the collaborations, that's the investment in the basic operational costs that are there. And so if we want to do this, this is the funding we need. And those funding sources, I think there's multiple sources. Not to go too in the weeds, I'll try to keep it basic, but there's earned revenue. We sell tickets, right? Not to everything, but to some things we sell tickets. We have operational revenue. We're a rental facility for a number of internal organizations within the university, as well as just community organizations or someone's son and daughter, they have a wedding or they have an event. So that's also part of our model in terms of operating. And then there's the philanthropic part of it, right? So we have a really generous base of folks who are generating contributing income for us that's managed by the Center for Advancement. And so there's that. And then, sorry to go deep, but I know this is important to you. We also have some other operational things that we call our auxiliary income, where we kind of just let it build up over time and then apply it as needed. And so it's almost like the money market right account for us, where it's just like it's available when needed, and you don't have to go through a lot of mechanics, which sometimes you do with the Center for Advancement, right? And then the piece that's in question, which has been traditional, is that contribution from the university as part of its general education fund. So that's where the question is. I think what we're proposing, and like this is not like a secret or anything, is, hey, we're willing to step up and think about our earned revenue and see if there are things that we can improve that are fair to our constituents and fair to the artists. We are willing to see where we can, not so much from a personnel standpoint, but from an operational standpoint, maybe save some dollars and make this a little bit of a cheaper fare. We're willing to engage our donor base and expand our donor base, but we think all of that is more successful if there is a general education contribution, or from another way, if that's what it needs to be, from the university, because some investment encourages more investment, which I know that you know very well, right? So that is where we would like to get to. Is that, is that helpful? Thank you. Appreciate that question. Last words, Wally?
I'm just wondering, Andre, if you're planning to continue the commissioning of new work. I mean, you talked around about that, but not directly to that. I mean, if it's anything that Hancher is known for around the world, it's for the commissioning of new work.
Who told you that?
I don't know. Anyway, question.
Aaron and I might have the same or different answers. I don't know. I think we're all in, the way I look at it is we're supporting developing artists. Commissioning may be a part of it. We will certainly commission stuff, but the thing before commissioning is just supporting developing artists. And whatever they need is what we're going to provide. If it's a commission they want, it's a commission we'll do. If they want something else, let's do that. Whatever is going to get them to the next level. I think sometimes there'll be commissions. I think sometimes it's going to be other things. Maybe we just want to park down in Iowa City for a month. All right, we'll figure it out. We'll find a place for you to stay. We want to get this work in front of a working faculty and students and just be with them for a month. Is that what you need in order to go to the next level? Cool, we'll do it. We'll figure out how to do it. So, yes, and sometimes it's going to look different. I think that's the answer, but Aaron gets the shot too.
Well, I think that it's, in addition to commissioning, and this is partly I think what Andre is saying, is that the actual development of new work and allowing the community and the campus access into work as it's developed is incredibly instructive. And it starts to locate the work in the place where it is being made. When I was very young in my career, organizations like Kronos Quartet would say, can you give us $25,000 to commission a work from Steve Reich? And I did that. And it felt weird in a way that Steve Reich was in the Hamptons writing a piece of work that would get, Steve Reich has plenty of money, but then would get played at Duke once, and our name would be on it. And so as that process evolved, I was seeking more and more frequently that work be developed in the community, or in our community, or on our campus, and that there be some transparency to that development process when it was appropriate, so that the community could see the work being made before it finally emerged fully shined up on stage. So it's a little twist on it, but I think commissioning and development is incredibly important. And we should all be incredibly thankful that Wally commissioned and developed so much work when he was at Hancher. You know, with the help of this terrific, remarkable community. That's how work making new stuff is resource intensive.
You all have been so generous with your time, your attention, your questions, just being here. We're here. Our doors are open. We'll talk. Everything is an open book. I would love for you to stop by and just say hi, or if you want me to come and visit again, Aaron or any of our colleagues, we're always here. Wally, thank you for getting us on the schedule, and for Dave getting us on the schedule, and Karen for just supporting. So, thank you all.